Senator Morrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, as many of you are aware, this is an issue that I brought up over the last couple of years. Obviously, this is my final attempt to get this done. Ladies and gentlemen, what is before you today is a constitutional amendment which our voters would vote on to establish to not have sales tax, state sales tax, on diapers and feminine hygiene products. The question I've often gotten, I'll just answer it in advance, is why is this something that should be constitutional and not statutory? And that is a great question, which I will answer in advance for those who are already going to ask it. As a state, we've established that there are certain things that as a state we do not tax because they are considered essential items. By essential, they're not a luxury item, they're an item that if you do not have it, your quality of life will deteriorate or it could be a danger to life and limb. For example, we do not tax prescription drugs because obviously we've established as a state that these are items that you cannot do it yourself, replicate, or live without. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to diapers and feminine hygiene products, these are items that are absolutely essential to the women and children of our state and their ability to exist in society. When you're talking about feminine hygiene products, I do not want to go into a robust biology lesson, but simply put, tampons and feminine hygiene products are not optional. You have to have them. They are not a luxury. They're not something that you maybe get. And I came to the conclusion that they were necessary to be included in this because in talking to some of my close friends, family, relatives, supporters, when you distill it to the simple fact that we don't tax drugs like Viagra, we consider Viagra an essential item, but we do tax tampons, there seems to be an inequity there. So this is not an item that people can optionally live without. It should therefore be put before the people to see if they believe it's on the same level as prescription drugs and food for your home. As far as diapers are an even more expensive and essential issue. Simply put, any pediatrician will tell you, and the Louisiana and national associations representing pediatricians are in support of this bill, it is impossible for a child to operate without a diaper. If you can't even send your children to daycare without diapers accompanying them, and more importantly, they will send your child home if you don't have diapers. We had a member of the Junior League of Baton Rouge come to the table. They represent one of the many diaper banks throughout the state, and they gave a very staggering number. In Baton Rouge, the greater Baton Rouge area, they gave out 400,000 diapers last year for their diaper bank, and that met 1/6 of the need. The woman who testified works and represents a grocery chain. She says frequently when we're doing stocking, we find diaper bags open with 1 or 2 diapers taken from them. And she said from the cameras and everything we've seen, these are literally poor parents who are changing their diapers, taking diapers out of the wrapper to change their children's diapers because they can't afford them, and they take 1 or 2 home to try and get them through payday. As you saw, there is a note on your desk from Louisiana Right to Life on this issue. It's important for us to establish that we believe that children, especially babies, are essential and their health is important. And part of that health, obviously, is access to diapers. So I see questions. I'll address those right now, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Peacock, you got a question?
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Morrell, I see what you're trying to do, but I've looked at the note on this bill, and it looks like this will cost us almost $9.6 million a year just for the state. Is that correct?
That is the correct number.
Where do you have a proposal of where we should make those cuts of the $9.6 million in the general fund?
Well, I don't know if you followed the committee debate on this. The bill was amended in committee so that it goes into effect not in this fiscal year, but the next. According to Revenue Estimating Committee, we have projected surpluses from 2021 forward in excess of $100 million. So the growth of budget will establish this, and it's no different than when, as a body, we pass a variety of incentive packages and base it upon economic growth. So additionally, I would counter, and not really counter, but I guess I would posit that when you're talking about lower income people and the ability to save the money from purchasing a diaper, I would argue that more likely than not, that money will immediately be spent on another sales taxable item. And I think that the loss might be mitigated somewhat by that. But I see your point. It costs money, and I'm not trying to hide that it costs money. And honestly, I know when Senator LaFleur was there, part of the conversation was, I think it's important to put before the voters to make the decision as to whether or not we should do it. They may not agree with me. They may think that diapers and feminine hygiene products are not essential items, and if that's the case, then so be it. But if a budget is a moral document, if our Constitution's a moral document, I think this is a moral issue.
And this will be in the Constitution of the state of Louisiana. Do any other states have this in their Constitution?
I don't have that number in front of me. I think there's one other state that does. I know there are several bills filed throughout the country, especially when it comes to feminine hygiene products. I know there's been a bipartisan effort in states, I believe, like Illinois, to try and put it in the same level of prescription drugs and other essential items. In some states, they don't have any items in their Constitution, which they probably would not then put this in there, but whatever prescription drugs are at, they usually try to put feminine hygiene products with prescription drugs. In the state of Louisiana, prescription drugs, the exemption, is in the Constitution.
So we could make this exemption without putting it in the Constitution. Is that correct?
You could absolutely do it without putting it in the Constitution, but simply put, the reason why I haven't gone that route is because I don't think this is in the same stature as gold bullion, airplanes, or boats. I think it's an essential item, and as a state, we've determined that when an item is essential to your life, liberty, and happiness, the Constitution is the appropriate place to put it. So I think that when it comes to feminine hygiene products and diapers, this is not something that should be an optional exclusion. In my opinion, which is why I brought the bill, I think that it should be in the same stature, like I said, as prescription drugs and as food for taking home.
And that $9.6 million, it does go to worthy things such as health care, early childhood education. It does help with funding our overall government that goes to support our families in our state, right?
Well, no, honestly, the money would come out of the projected surplus in 2021, and we have not appropriated that money yet because it does not exist. So it could go to that, honestly, or it could go to legislative pay raises or anything because the money's not obligated yet. So it could be used for those things, but it's not currently obligated for them.
But we will have $9.6 million less to support education, health care in our state.
If you take the position that you can guarantee that's where the money would go from this legislature, sure. But I think we've seen over the last couple of years the legislature has not necessarily held those as priorities. Thank you, Mr. Peacock. See more questions.
Senator Long, you got a question?
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Morrell, I'm trying to connect. I understand what you're saying. You want to put it under what other prescription drugs are. I'm just concerned that we're using the Constitution in regards to this amendment when we could be applying the same principle that you've established through a statutory dedication. Help me work through that.
As a state, we have established that when an item is essential to someone's survival, life, liberty, and happiness, we don't think it's optional. As we've seen through the last couple of years, a statutory exemption is an optional exemption because it can be frozen by the legislature at any time. So the question becomes, Senator Long, do you think diapers are more important than gold bullion? Because we have those exemptions in the books. They're statutory in nature. we've already established as a state that when something is essential to people being here, as a state, it's immoral to tax it. That was the argument for prescription drugs. It was, we should not be taxing prescription drugs. People need their heart medication. I would argue that diapers and feminine hygiene products are at that level. So I think, like I said, our Constitution's a moral document. This is a moral issue. We've established the precedent that this is appropriate for that, this is where this is supposed to go, which is why I took this process of doing it. So, I mean, I don't know how to express it any more clearer, that I think that diapers and tampons are as important as prescription drugs.
Can you name other items that perhaps the Constitution does not cover, besides your bill, that you would consider essential or necessary? I'm saying, what?
Very wide open question. Like, would you like to cite an item?
No, my question is that how do we cover everything? It's a question.
We don't. When a legislator determines there's a thing, he makes the argument. A future legislator, because I won't be here, if they determine there's something else out there that's essential, they'll have the ability to come before you and make the same argument. But the threshold should be, can people operate in society without this item? You cannot operate in society as a parent without diapers. Period. It's not optional. It's not a car. It's not a bike. It's not a TV or a video game console. It's a diaper for a baby. That's essential, in my opinion. And that's why I think it should be elevated, and the state should constantly have to acknowledge it, and we should address it in that way. And like I said, I was very cognizant of establishing that it would create a strain on the state. The reason why I moved the date from this year to next year is that this year REC recognized a $40 million surplus. Obviously, none of us, $40 million is a tiny amount of money. We're addressing some budgetary issues with it. A future legislature will have to take into account that remainder revenue not being there. But to be clear, I think that this is as important as prescription drugs. I mean, I just think that's where it is.
You do acknowledge that we could resolve or cover your concerns with a statutory dedication.
I acknowledge that I believe that diapers and tampons are more important than votes and gold bullion. Thank you.
All right. Any amendments, Mr. Secretary? Senator Ewing, you wish the floor on the bill? Come on down.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I'd like to say to our colleague, Senator Morrell, and I mean this really sincerely, that I appreciate your strong record in the Senate of advocating on women's issues, many issues. I think you will have left a legacy of advocating for women, and I mean that really from my heart. On this particular issue, though, I rise against this, and it really is for the fiscal reasons. We're not talking about diapers and feminine hygiene products in this bill. We're talking about the state sales tax on those items. And while I appreciate how expensive they are, especially for folks that are struggling to make ends meet, again, we're talking about the sales tax on those items. So, using the fiscal note, the savings for women using feminine hygiene products is 27 cents a month. 27 cents a month is what they would save if they were sales tax exempt. And for families with children in diapers, they will save 65 cents a week. That's not a lot of money, and I don't think it's a game changer. And I do appreciate, again, and understand the expense of the diapers. It's staggering when you have children in diapers. But I think when you offset that and you compare that to the cost to the state of $9.6 million and the great needs of this state and the money that we could be talking about in years to come about how to spend it, I just don't think that this is a good way to go. So I'm not going to support this bill.
Senator Chabot, you wish the floor.
I rise in support of the bill. I agree with the statements that Senator Hewitt had just made as it relates to the fiscal nature of this bill. But the people that are really going to need this bill are the poor people of the state of Louisiana, of which whatever the savings is, if it's a penny or a dollar or two, 90% sure that that money is going to go right back into our economy and we're going to recoup it, making the whatever potential loss there is for the state fisc null and void. That's my opinion. That's why I support the bill.
All right, any further discussion? Senator Morrell, you have a right to close.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would encourage you just to listen to me for 1 second. I know there's a lot of side conversation going on. This has been an issue that's been very dear to me. I've debated it for a number of years. I brought this bill before you for a number of years because I so firmly believe in it. To Senator Schauber's point, it is amazing to me that someone would take the position that because it's not that much money, it's not worth it. It's great to have the luxury of saying whatever amount it is, it's not worth doing it. For those families that are literally changing their babies' diapers in grocery stores because they can't afford diapers, it's nice that you say whatever we save them is not worth it. It's not as simple as that. I don't understand. We just had a debate on the Equal Rights Amendment where we said it's about the babies. It's about the babies. As Senator Barrow said in committee when we had it in finance, Senator Mizell used to run daycare facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, you have parents that can't take their kids to the day school because they don't have diapers. Think about that in the economy. If you have a working parent who can't afford diapers, so she has to stay home with her child, how much does that cost us? More than 67 cents. Don't sit up here and talk to us about how important babies are to this state, how important it is to protect the rights of people that have babies, and then say, when it's our time to make sure they can afford diapers, it's too much. The level of hypocrisy is staggering. And we are going to vote this year on new exemptions to things. I will count on reminding you on how you vote on whether women should pay for tampons and whether single families, small families should have diapers to bring their children to daycare. Thank you.
All right, the gentleman has moved final passage. When the machines are open, those in favor will vote yes, those opposed, no. Open the machines, please. Vote your machines. It's all for yes. Vote your machines. You through voting? Are you through voting? Oh, yes. All right, close them up, please. The gentleman desired to give notice of reconsideration. Before he did, the vote is 21 yeas and 12 nays. It takes a 2/3 vote on a constitutional amendment. Senator Morrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, there's an amendment, please.
Amendment sent by Senator Morrell. It's set number 1735. You have them out? 1735.
Senator Morrell.
Mr. President, members, I relent. I hear what you have said. This amendment turns SB 5 into a statutory exemption for diapers and feminine hygiene products, as opposed to a constitutional one. So with this amendment, the bill will be a statutory exemption, and the constitutional amendment will no longer be required. That's what the amendment does.
Any questions on the amendment? Any objection to adoption of the amendments? Stands adopted. Any further discussion on the bill? Further discussion on the bill?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Senator Morrell moves final passage. Machines open. Those in favor vote yes. Opposed, no. Vote your machines, please. Vote your machines. Senator Chalbert, yes. You through voting? Are you through voting? All right, close them up, please. 29 yeas, 5 nays. Bill final passage. Reconsider vote on objection.